Today's show is sponsored by Fender Guitars, makers of the JA90, Jim Adkins signature Telecaster. My serial killer handwriting is on the back of the headstock there. That's real. Chambered at the top third to annoy everyone around you when it's not plugged in. It sounds better when it is plugged in, though. Fender hasn't given me any direction or any copy to use for these ads. Fender Guitars, go ahead, plug them in. Maybe? Today I'm talking with Steve Aoki. In the early days of the band, we did a lot of short regional tours around the Southwest. That's the Southwest right there. And booking our own shows, we were at the mercy of whoever would be kind enough to put us up. Steve lived at a house that did punk shows and let us play in their kitchen a couple times for whoever would show up. Since that time, Steve has gone on to become a fairly well-known DJ. But he's more than a DJ. He writes songs, he produces, he ran a record label, runs a record label. He's got his fingers in many pots. Fingers in pots. Many fingers in many pots. That's not how that saying goes, and there's probably a reason for that, because I don't see how that's a desirable thing to have a lot of pots on your fingers. I was especially excited to talk to Steve because I think that song construction in the electronic world is different from the way that like rock world people approach it. My conversation with Steve Aoki happened May 20th of 2020. Hello, Steve.
What's up, Jim?
Man, just kicking it.
Nice.
Not much, really.
Yeah. So you're in your studio, looks like.
Yeah, this is the home base for all things creative. Nice. With our band and me.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty fortunate that I have a space like this I can head to and just do my thing.
Yeah, I know. It's important that, like, especially during this time, we can be creative and have our own space. And I think more and more it's artists or just have their own studio setups, even if they're like, something piecemeal together. So I have another friend, he's a singer, and he has to go to a studio to record, but he built his own little studio setup in his home for the first time because of COVID. But everyone's just doing it now,
It totally makes sense. I think, we both sort of come out of the primordial ooze of punk rock where you learn pretty quickly that as little as you have to rely on outside people, the better off you are.
Yeah.
As far as like your vision goes for things, but also just on a functional day-to-day level kind of thing. Like when we, after Bleed American came out, and we got money. We decided to instead of we sort of invested in ourselves. Like we bought recording equipment so that if it all went away, we could still do what we wanted. With or without fans, with or without MTV, with or without a label, we could still just do what we wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it just makes more sense when you don't have to rely on anyone else.
I think like now it's never been a better time to be a music fan, and it's never been a better time to be a creative person in the music field, because you can kind of do the tools that were out of reach for so long are now accessible if you have an internet connection. Like you can software that you can use to multi-track yourself or create. You don't even have to be like a technically proficient at an instrument to like have an idea and hear it, hear that idea exist on your own.
Absolutely. Yeah, the producers of 2020 or of this generation or this last 10 years, like 2010 to 2020, this is the best time for especially the youth. You know, like there's a lot of time. I mean, like when I first started playing instruments when I was 15, I mean, I started with a Tascam 4-track recorder. You know what I mean? Like it's just
I know exactly what you mean.
it's a completely different time. And then with producers now, there's kids starting at 12, 13, 14 years old with a laptop and everything's in the box. You know, you don't actually need synthesizers. You don't need outboard gear. You don't need, you actually don't need instruments. And if you don't know how to play chords, there's plugins that can help with that. So there's so many training wheels in order to finish a song or make a song. I mean, they're like built in, like on the Apple computer. When you buy Apple, you have GarageBand on there, and it's like you can learn how to edit your first movie on iMovie, and then you can make your first song on GarageBand, and it's you know, it's pretty intuitive. If you spend a little bit of time tinkering with it. And a lot of the other ones like Ableton, which is what I use, and other DAWs out there, they make it so it's intuitive enough for anyone to pick it up. Like it is ages 12 and up. You know, it's definitely it can be like a game. You know, it's changed so it's changed so much when you talk about like, yes, this is the time. You know, this is the time. This is a generation where you can make music at any age. Like there's no boundary, you know, there's no barrier of entry, you know, that like seemingly was, at least when I was younger, the barrier of entry to be in a band or to be in a band that's touring was much higher, or being an artist that's noticed was a bit more difficult. So I feel like, but at the same time, at the same token, when the barrier of entry is lower, you have a flood of music out there,
right?
You know, which I think is good in the end, because with the flood of music, it's just about curation. Because with the flood of music, you get all different kinds of genres that are just popping up, just on the basis of that. There's so much out there. There's going to be like different streams and strands of you know, a kid really inspired by Jimmy Eat World, but also inspired by Skrillex. So then it comes like his influences will or her influences will become this offshoot of Jimmy Eat World, Skrillex kind of music, and it's just a whole new genre. You know, it's just it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, there's so much music out there. I totally agree with you that now more than ever. We've kind of entered. You know, it's still the Wild West, but we've entered into a curation phase where it's slowly starting to get to that. And there's always been that figure. Like in the past, it was like the record store clerk that saw what you were buying and heard and knows everything. It was like, hey man, you know, I saw you picked up, you know, this Tortoise record. You might want to check out the Sea and Cake.
Yeah, exactly.
But whatever it is you're buying, like they know it all. Like they know your death metal in and out. They know, you know, electronic stuff in and out. And they're like, hey, dude, you probably dig this.
Yeah.
Now that person isn't a person per se.
Yeah.
sometimes it's an algorithm. Sometimes it's like another. It's your friends in your social network circles that are like sharing things. Hey, dude, check this out. And because you know them, you know whether or not to trust what they're recommending.
Yeah.
And it's you know, that's what I mean by like, it's never been a more exciting time to be a music fan, because while the barrier is so low and that's available to everybody and everybody can have their own GarageBand composition, there's never been a more, the stuff that's excellent will transcend all.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like,
absolutely.
And it's totally exciting.
Well, the way they set that up, especially like the Spotify's and the playlisting, is set up. The algorithms are set up in a way where whoever's listening to these songs the most, they do rank up higher, and then it becomes more visible. So it's definitely more of people's contest than like a radio contest, where the radio programmers are the ones that dictate like what will be listened to at a mass level, you know, and like that's where like the rise of these non-radio artists that blow up, like the Latin artists or the K-pop artists that blow up without any sort of institutional support, because it's really derived on the fans that are just die hard, just going in, and you know, and then they create their own little system, you know, which I've noticed working with like a group like BTS, like just watching the BTS army work together as like a company, as a publicity marketing machine, where they're like, okay, we know what the algorithm does and how it works. We need to get more people listening to BTS. So this is how we're going to do it. It's like the best way to get music out there is get your fans to become part of the process. You know, it's, you know, it's incredible.
I read a story about some band that like raised money to make their album by posting up tracks of silence on a Spotify, and told their fans to just like stream it overnight. Like, so they just like rank. You can't do that anymore. They caught on to it, but like that's how they raised money to like make an album based off of their fans listening to like meditative recordings by whatever band. It was just silence.
Wow. That sounds like a trolling thing almost.
Yeah, it's creative. It's a creative trolling, you know. It's the it's such a, I mean, in the past it was like, and it's a truism is nothing is ever good until someone else tells you it's good. Like in the music industry, like people who are in charge of greenlighting what gets promoted or what gets power rotation. It's like, you know, I think and with like corporations taking over, you know, radio station chains, it's kind of never been more. There's never been less of that person who actually pushes the button. It's never been less their call what to play, and it's like, and now I think that system is slowly getting, you know, disintegrated, because you do have like the terrestrial radio people keeping an eye on, well, how is this streaming, you know, like taking that information and then making their decisions based on that. Whereas in the past, it was like, I mean, who knows what kind of favors or under the table money was being traded
payola,
for what kind of payola. Now it's like, no, it's all right there. You can tell exactly what cities this track is kicking ass in, how many people have
Shazammed it.
How many people have Shazammed it? How many people have been listening to it off a playlist and then downloaded it onto their personal device? Because that's really like, are you making a connection, or is your song just number 2 on a playlist that has 1 million subscribers?
Yeah. That's the name of the game now. It's like, how do you get on those playlists? Because you just get all these passive listeners that just add up your count. You know, I mean, if you get added to a playlist, that's the goal these days, is for record labels, especially small ones, like, you know, because I've been running Dimmock for almost 25 years now, and like just to get any of your songs on a playlist, especially a Spotify playlist, not like a fan playlist, but a Spotify playlist. It's just the numbers go up, and you know, I hate to say that, then like with higher numbers, you're going to get more other listeners, but that's just how it works in that world, you know, because you're like, okay, if I'm going to, especially for the introductory factor, you know, if you talk about the index of how to get people to find out more about, you know, I mean, people know Jimmy World. If you know your genre, they know Jimmy World. But if you have like a young artist that's on the rise, and they get added because the playlist, the person that curates the playlist puts them in there and gives them the chance. That's the index factor just goes up for introductory, right. You know, so it just changes the game. It's just a completely different system than it was before. You know, like talking about like radio and how that works. And I know I remember like back in the day, you know, you guys were grinding hard. You guys were playing. I mean, you played. I still talk about it. I still talk about the stories how you guys played in my kitchen. You guys played in my kitchen in like '97.
Yep.
And you know, I was I was a little kid. You were young. You were both like two kids, just trying to do our thing. I was in college and you were touring, and you come through Isla Vista, and we would hang and like walk around Isla Vista, and like then you'd play in front of like 15, 20 people in my kitchen.
Yeah, good times, man. No, it's funny. Well, I mean, we knew that no one was going to really help us, but that didn't stop us from wanting to. We were just having fun.
Yeah,
that was fun. You could, I mean, man, like there was no goal of turning this into something that would be a career. That was like, are you kidding me? Like, it was just fun. What are we doing? We're rocking, man.
Yeah.
We're on tour.
This brings me back down memory lane. I mean, just going and following you guys around too. Cause I remember I saw you guys, I think it was at Huntington Beach Library. You guys played there before?
Yeah.
So I've definitely seen Jimmy Eat World back in 90, I guess it was probably 98, 97, 98, 99. Like you guys were around like that. Okay. That era of Jimmy Eat World, I was Christie Front Drive, Mineral, right? Like Coos Cafe, Huntington Beach Library, Sensefield. Yes, Sensefield. That was my thing. I would just go and like follow you guys, see your shows. Loved Christie Front Drive. You guys always played together. It's just probably so many shows, but like just that era of Jimmy Eat World, that was a very fond era for me.
Yeah, there's some footage that just got unearthed of us playing the Detroit Mind Over Matter Fest. Wow. I want to say that was probably 97 or 98. And I'm like, who are these kids? But I remember that show because we were a little intimidated because it was like, there's a lot of hardcore bands.
Yeah.
And, we had, our record was out on Capitol. Like we were playing basements and we were sleeping on floors and we'd be like at the merch table and people would walk by and pick up our record and look at it, see the Capitol logo and go, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing here? And like, just because you're on a record label doesn't mean like you're instantly like showered with, you're not instantly doing arenas because you're on a label.
Yeah.
Like we gotta grind. We gotta do what we want to. We gotta do this to do what we want to do. We're right here with you.
Yeah, but I remember. I just like going back. It's like I haven't talked about that era to anyone in such a long time. But I mean, that's what I would do. I would go to the shows. I loved all those bands. It's like all those bands that you would always play with, and then. Like they would kind of they would play and then all of a sudden one would break up, another would break up. But Jimmy Eat World just, took off. It just took off. It was like one of those things. It's like you were the one band out of that whole crew of bands that I followed that just blew up. It was insane to watch.
It's still insane to be a part of on this side, man. Trust me. Yeah, it's funny. Like I remember, I think Chris Vanacore from J. June was like, "Hey man, you know what Steve's up to? Like he's like a pretty well known DJ now." I'm like, "Wait, Steve Aoki? Like, yeah, he's doing what? Like what's that? Like, I mean, this is a while ago, but still, I was like, yeah, I remember Steve. He's doing what?"
Yeah. I mean, just when you say the word J. June, I'm like, wow. Because
there were another group like from that era that we rolled around with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I also think about the labels like attached to all those bands, and J. June. What label were they on? Big Wheel.
Big Wheel.
Did you guys put out records on Big Wheel too?
Yeah. We put out a couple split. We put out they put out the split 7-inch we did with J. June. Okay, that's right. And they put out actually the vinyl for Clarity.
Right.
And we did an EP with them. And we did like a collection of 7 inches and stuff we re-released with them.
Yeah. Big Wheel. That was a great label. Where were they from?
Boston. At the time. Yeah. Rama.
Okay.
He just Rama. Yeah.
Oh my God, Rama. Yeah.
He just surfaced. Like he just started a Big Wheel Instagram.
Wow. okay, this is all coming together because I remember in 2008, years passed by. I've like left doing the band thing. I was DJing, and I started working with Rama on clothing. It's so weird, right? He left music industry, went into clothing, and then he helped me start Dim Mak, my music label, into a fashion business. So Rama's a smart guy. He was a pretty smart guy.
Yeah, he's always been, quick to seize an opportunity and always willing to take a risk. And a big part of my life is better for it.
Yeah.
For sure.
But Fueled by Ramen, they put out your 10-inch, right?
Yeah, they put out an EP for us. They're from I think Vinny from Less Than Jake was the person who ran that out of Florida.
Yeah. Fueled by Ramen was, they were the upstart for a lot of incredible bands. Just bands that just blew up, But I remember buying the 10-inch, and I was like, Fueled by Ramen released this? It was your EP. I bought it from Ebullition. I bought it from Kent McClark, my neighbor at the time. But yeah, that was when I was like, holy shit, Jimmy World's like,
we made it.
They left the stratosphere. They're like, because you started I started hearing your songs on the radio, and like everyone started knowing Jimmy World. And that's another thing too with rock. It's like, it's different nowadays. Like nowadays it's rock entering top 40. You have to be like pop. You have to fit into a pop category, or else it's very difficult. Like the days of Rage Against the Machine where they were just dominating. It's hard for hard rock or even any sort of rock to really enter in top 40.
Right.
Unless like you're like 21 Pilots that does like this morphing of like rock and pop melodies, or or Jimmy World, with your pop sensibilities too. But when you guys broke through, even at that time, I thought that was like that was a very difficult ceiling for anyone in your in the category, in the scene, to be able to break through like that.
We were really fortunate that like right around the time that Bleed American was really blowing up, you had like the Strokes.
Yeah.
You had
right.
Who else was really, so like it wasn't necessarily all, we went to the MTV VMAs, and like the Hives were like nominated for something. So it wasn't like, it wasn't entirely, it wasn't quite so, the pop top 40 wasn't quite so pop then. Like there was still a little bit of room. I think Foo Fighters probably were.
Wow. Yeah.
Foo Fighters are another band that could probably get into the top just because of how many like massive hits they have.
Yeah. Yeah. And they are like traditional rock, like I also think of like Coldplay. They'll get in there, but I don't put them in the Foo Fighters category. It's like a complete kind of, even though they are rock, it's just different,
Yeah.
But Foo Fighters is a great example. Foo Fighters is a great example because it's just like pure driven, like guitar rock, it's, and you're right. You're right. Like it's like, or Green Day, or, like those kinds of bands can really like get in there with, and it doesn't seem weird. That's the other thing too. Cause it's just like hip hop too. It's like Post Malone and Travis Scott and Drake's. And then you have like even like 6ix9ine who just comes out of the gate, who's like number 3 on the Billboard. And then you have obviously the Ariana Grandes and the Justin Biebers and that sound. And whenever I see like a rock band climbing in there, like my rock soul gets very happy too, because it's just, you don't see it that much anymore. But that era, talking about that era too, that Strokes, that Strokes era, that era that I remember right when he said when the Strokes came out, that was massive. That was when like Leeds and Reading Festival, and NME was on fire. It was like the Bible, like that kind of, I just, because at that time, around that time, I was, a little bit post that is when I saw my first really big act, The Kills, on Dimmock. So I put out Pretty Girls Make Race, which was they were like on the rise, and then The Kills was like this kind of rock sensation that was becoming like this global thing. And then Block Party for me was like the big home run, the big grand slam for Dimmock as an indie label signing. And but I remember what you were talking about. That era was like, you couldn't have these bands come out without those bands, the White Stripes,
Franz Ferdinand.
Franz Ferdinand. Wow. Yeah.
That was also
Monkeys was later, but Arctic Monkeys was a bit later, but yeah.
Yeah, Arctic Monkeys. Yeah, that was also sort of like right around the rise of Muse, even like that,
yes,
when they started. They were always like pretty decent in Europe, but right around there was kind of where they're sort of breaking. I remember we did a radio festival in DC, and Muse was on it, Franz Ferdinand was on it, we were on it, Papa Roach was on it, and because I mean that was what radio looked like at the time, like the rock radio was like big, and Franz, it was like one of those things like where the next night most of the bands were playing like in DC for their radio fest thing, and or whatever next city it was, like. And so me and our guitar tech go and we're just walking by and we see a dressing room open, and it's Franz Ferdinand's dressing room, except they're all gone. So we took the rest of their booze, and the Muse guys caught us.
That happens all the time, by the way. I know that happens all the time. Yeah.
The Muse guys caught us like, wait, are you just taking that bottle of wine from their dressing room? And our guitar tech was like, no, man, I'm just taking it to the bus. But I explained to Muse like how rad they were and how they handed everybody their ass that night, which I had to instantly explain what having one's ass handed to them meant, because they're they'd never heard that expression before.
They're like, what is it? Yeah,
I was also kind of drunk at the time too, so it was I didn't land the plane.
I wouldn't know how to explain that, but yeah.
Like, man, you handed everyone their ass tonight, and like, what?
Yeah,
like like you're really good. Like you embarrassed everyone with how good you are, and
yeah, live. Man. I mean, I've only seen their live stuff online, but such a fan.
They're
such a fan.
The next time that like shows happen and they play, you should go check it out, because it's an insane spectacle. I wonder like. There's I think about my creative process and like the system of rewards that is sort of built into what I choose to chase. And I can't, when something just works, it's like, that's a reward. Like, oh man, that I did that. It's cool. Like, so you kind of, then that becomes a strength of yours. So like you've built up this, like, if I do this, I might get to this, which is a creative success. And I wonder, like, with your process that's so. I mean, I can tell that like your shows generate an insane reward, just like creatively and personally, and just as like a fun, a level of fun.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, like, are you self-aware of that reward system? And when you're creating something from scratch, are you sort of like building in, where you sort of playing to your strengths in a way with devices that kind of will get that reaction?
I would say the two main roads of process I really think about is, yes, that one, where that, like, seeing that, knowing how songs affect crowds in certain ways. I will make records for the show, specifically for the show, and hope that other DJs will play it, because they work, they punch, they hit you exactly how it's supposed to hit you when you're hearing it at a live festival or a show. So make music and produce music in that regard, but I also make music, and this is like where the collaborations really stem from, is to just make great songs, you know, whether they fit. Like, so I'm like, what I'll do is like, if I make a great song, then I will make a remix so that it does punch the way it's supposed to punch at the live shows.
Like if you feel like the artistic need to create something takes you away from what might translate or what you feel like might be a tool for live, then you'll create you'll see it through on your own vision, but then do an alt remix version of it that might be a little bit more of a tool.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the nature of my world too. It's like endemic. It's part of what we do is remixing. Part of what we do is sampling. So it's like, it just comes like, it's natural. Like before I even made my first original song as a producer, I like just toyed with 40 or 50 different remixes. I learned how to remix, you know, like as a producer, I had to learn how to work with stems and build melodies and build out a drop. And then, you know, over the course of time, I was like, all right, I'm ready for my first original. And by that time, you know, luckily I was in a position where I could meet people. And I was lucky. My first one was with will.i.am because he was always coming to my shows or coming to my parties, not my particular shows, but like the Dim Mak parties that we would throw in LA. But yeah, it's like the live show experience very much is not just like how I process or like what the tail end of my process is when I make a song, but it's like in my heart. Like the show is the most important part to me, you know, like making the song, I'm thinking about the show, like, you know, and then if I'm doing a really great song, like if I'm doing like a song with the band, or and I know I'm not trying to make a crazy heavy drop. It's like, well, let's like really emotionally connect with people just through, you know, the way in which music is distributed through streaming and stuff. And then if that song really exceeds the potential, then I'll make a remix and then I can start playing it at my shows, or I'll make a mashup or something like that. But yeah, it's the live show is such a big part of the whole process for sure.
You know, when you sent me the multi-track for Golden Days,
yeah,
like so I threw it in my this computer, and you know, I brought it up and I'm looking at it, and you know, so I have my there is like a structure that I work with within, and it's something that I've kind of, you know, really enjoyed working with. Like I like giving myself a limitation, and usually that limitation is the structure of a traditional pop kind of song where you have like, you know, intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, re-intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, chorus, and it's been true for a really long time. Yeah. but I like getting in there and trying to subvert from within. Like, how demented can I be while rigidly following this restriction, you know? And so that's just how I look at everything. And so like when I brought up Golden Days on my computer, I'm like looking at it, I'm like, okay, so this is the verse. It probably goes to the chorus here. This thing drops out here. So that must be the bridge. And then it ends on this part. But like, it didn't really make sense to me because it didn't feel like a verse. It didn't really feel like there was a pre-chorus, but there's like a change, and it didn't really feel like a typical chorus. It was just like the entire song is this crazy hook.
Yeah, it's true. It's like the verse is more of like a pre-hook.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's already set. Like you start off like setting up for the main hook. Like there's no like, you know, and that's kind of like electronic culture too, is electronic music culture is like, we're going to get to the punch in the most efficient way possible. Like the way that song was traditionally written was in a rock studio. It was in John Feldman's studio with Mark Hoppus, Travis Barker, Callum Hood from 5 Seconds of Summer, and John definitely he's not just a producer, he's like writing the music. as well as producing. And we jammed that thing out like as if it was, for 5 seconds of summer. Like I wasn't sure what we're going to do with it. I was like involved in some of the songwriting and some of the lyrics and some of the arrangement, but Travis was on the drums. Callum sung like basically the top line, played the bass. Mark got on 2, was writing the lyrics. And then when I had it and I was starting to piece it together, because I brought all the live instrumentation, brought it back to my studio, and I started putting on other drums, electronic drums, and building out the synths and more of the stuff that I could add to it and the drop. Then it started changing. Then it started like changing into a different direction. But it's interesting, like the process of rock or just traditional songs versus EDM songs. They're very similar in that there's like the hooks that you have. You have like your verse, you have your pre-hook, you have your hook, your verse, pre-hook, hook, bridge. Actually, most EDM songs don't have a bridge, but this is a song that's really, I want it to be led by the vocalist. And when I actually brought it, interesting enough, I brought it back to everyone. I'm like, we got to get Jim Adkins on here. I mean, this sounds like I can hear his voice all over this. And everyone was ecstatic about the idea. And I was like, I just got to reach out to an old friend, because I was like, hey, so we haven't talked in a long time, but like we have such a like a long history, such an interesting history from when it's like, when I first met you.
Yeah.
Over 20 years ago. But yeah, going back to the process, it's interesting that you say it like that, because when I listen to it in my head, I think I'm only dreaming, life's too short anyway. It's just very much like it's already getting set up. Like the second line,
it's like on the end of the third beat, you're already setting up of the start of the song. You're already setting up something kind of significant. Like it's not subtle at all.
Right.
I can see in seeing you play too. I can see how you it's like building a collage work almost, like you're I can use this for here. Like every thought, every creative decision is like you have like 4 in the future that you can, different ways you can use it, and that sort of informs your decisions now with things. And it's really interesting to hear you say, like, break down like the song structure of, like, I guess the world that you inhabit. Like you're sort of part of a scene now that it's not like the rock world with how songs are constructed and how I even think about songs like hook, pre-hook, drop, kind of like terminology. Like the Iconopop song on your new record is like, I was listening to it and it's sort of it's like chorus, verse, instrumental break, verse, chorus. It's like I could pick out the chorus there, but still it's sort of hard because like everything is just a hook, and it's sort of like I forget the terminology for it, but did you ever play Half-Life, the video game? Or Halo, or like a Halo. Yeah. It's like there's a strategy, and it has a name for it. I can't remember, but basically they'll give you enough like total carnage, but just not enough that you get used to it, and then they take it away, and then it's like calm, and you're kind of waiting for the next round of carnage to come in. But it's like it's limited, and it's not. You don't get burnt out on the effect of it, because it doesn't overstay. And I think a lot of like the construction of your songs, it's like just when you have it down what you're going to do with your body, then it's like you change it, or you bump it up, or it drops, but you give it like it drops, but there's hand claps on 2 and 4. So it's going somewhere. It's like it never just stops unless it's like the end of the song.
Right.
And it's just like if you stop and really think about it, for a person like me, it's really refreshing and kind of exciting. And it's like, like it doesn't make sense with how I would set it up, but it totally works. And I never feel like it's missing something, even though I can't define it the way I just normally would take something and put it into its categories, right, in the way I think about creating stuff.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I really appreciate your words on that. It makes me really think about that kind of process of mixing where to put what. Like personally, as you're talking about, the more I think about it, I realize how much I love putting the hook first. I do that a lot. I actually learned that from hip hop. I learned that from the hip hop artists I did an album, Colony, and a few of the records that we did, it didn't start with the verse and building into the hook. It was a hook first. It was the chorus first, right from the very beginning.
Right. If you're not into the chorus by the end of one, you've lost it. One and like, nope, I don't get it. I don't hear it.
It's like, I'm gonna give it to you big right now, get you right singing along, and then we're gonna start it up. You know, it's a really I'm seeing that a little bit more and more. That style of the core, the hook first, the main hook first, and then the verse. And the verse is like has to be really catchy, not like
that ups the ante for your verse melody. Like it has to match. Like you just came from the catchiest part of the song. Yeah. You need somewhere to go to sort of like create a scene for the song itself, but you can't like, it just came from the catchiest part of the song. Like you can't let everybody down now. It's like, you better be good. This better be good.
You got to change a dynamic element of how the rhythm is the rhythm of how you're singing it. So like with rappers, it's like you go from like a singing hook to just a rap. So I'm like, no matter what, it's so different. You know, the rap has to be good, of course. You know, it has to be really good. But when it comes to vocals, like when it's just purely sung, then like I'm almost listening as if I'm listening to a language I haven't heard. Sometimes I do that. Like when I listen to the song, I don't want to know the lyrics. I want to like feel the rhythm of how they're singing in the words. And if they're using like shorter bursts or like more soaring vocal, and I need to like almost feel it in that, like look at like the song in my head, almost like a waveform, you know, and see if like there's the dynamic range is there where it will, my brain's constantly being intrigued, or like, you know, I'm not like trying to look at my phone during the verse, you know. I mean, that's probably one of the best testaments too, because like your brain, especially your kids, you know, like your kids are probably the best testament to like, if they look at their phone, you know, like halfway through the hook, you might have to go back and retool it.
What do you guys think? Yeah, Dad. It's great, but it's not. Yeah, it's good, Dad.
But also, your kids always are your hardest critics. You know, like in a way where
it is true. Yeah. If you can win over like the 11-year-old demographic, then like you're on to something.
But you got to win over their friends. And sometimes you can't trust your own kids because they don't want to support you because you're dad. Boring. You're like boring dad. You're not cool. You're not a cool dad. You know what I mean? Like you're just dad. So it's.
Did you see that there's like a meme with like Slayer always, I mean, they're going to win the Grammy for best heavy metal performance because like if they put out a record, they're going to win a Grammy for that. Yeah. So like it's like them on the red carpet and oh God, it's just the bass player. Tom, is that his name?
Slayer?
Yeah. Anyway, but like so he's on the red carpet like, you know, in a suit and there's a quote that says you could be in Slayer and your 14-year-old daughter still thinks you're lame. And she's like, because his family's right there and she's just kind of looking at it like, Dad.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. You're right. Your kids' friends, if they buy into it, then you're onto something. But your kids,
exactly.
Exactly. They're working an angle if they're complimentary on something, you know. Yeah. They're going to ask you for something along with their compliment. Like that you might say no to.
Oh, yeah. I don't have any kids yet, but I can only imagine. I know you would know more than me, but yeah. I mean, there's so many different techniques, right? Like on how to make a great song, in so many different ways, and then you have to like you. I mean, we like sometimes you want to start the song right from the start because Spotify streams will count that. You don't want to have too long of an intro before a vocal comes in. I know some artists that like literally start on the 0 mark with a vocal.
Right. Or maybe like the vocal starts as the pickup into the downbeat. So technically the vocal starting before 0 in a way.
Right. It's like, there's a lot of things like that. I don't necessarily think about that when I should. When I have friends of mine going, listen to this artist, they always start with vocal on right at 0. It's and then you see their streams go, but like they're great songs. So I guess if you play the system and you write great music, you'll just, I'm sure, like, maybe that helps. I don't know.
I think that goes to sort of trying to subvert the system from within, or trying to like trying to make the formula yours. Like there is something sort of strangely satisfying in there is something kind of subversive in following the formula exactly, or like playing the game spot on, but then still delivering that heart within that, or like that, still imparting your character and what you want to say within the perfectly formulated system.
Yeah. No,
take the focus group tried and true bass drop. But how are you going to put your heart into that? How are you going to make that Steve? Like
yeah, exactly. Like you want to be effective, but you don't want to lose your DNA. Like you want it to punch the way it's supposed to punch, or the way it's supposed to feel. But you got to make sure that like your DNA is all entwined in all over that. It's true. I mean, it's also like something to be said about artists that can just break the code in half, and do something completely off, make the song not 3.5 minutes and it's a pop song. Make the song like 5 minutes and it's a pop song. Is that doable nowadays? I'm curious to see,
I think it could. If something was number one streaming that was like 7 minutes long, you'd bet like terrestrial radio would start playing it, and like the more mainstream avenues would pick it up and slam it.
Yeah. And it's like, I want to see what those are, because obviously Bohemian Rhapsody was all about that, it was all about like saying, fuck radio, we're going to do it our way. And then radio played it, like.
But every step in Bohemian Rhapsody, I think, has more in common with like EDM music than you think, because it's a hook every inch of tape. There's like a new hook that's like captivating. Even the outro. I've always kind of thought it was sort of like as a joke that Bohemian Rhapsody was sort of just a competition within Queen of who could have the last note, because especially if you listen to the outro, it's like it's the end of the song, but it's not, but it's not, but it's not, but it's not, but it's not. It's like everyone has like their own little flourish that kind of extends the song.
Right. And you're always intrigued by it. So you have like, there's so much personality on top of the fact that everything's a hook. So you have so much of that Queen DNA all over writing that thing by the whole band, and they definitely showcase that in the music video with all their faces lit up singing, like it just was, I mean, it was like, you of course you think Freddie Mercury, but you think, Brian May, you think of all the other guys, and their faces lighting up in that weird underlight, but it's a curious question on what songs in 2020 can defy, the golden rule of what's number one and how,
You have a lot of creative people with a lot of free time and a bunch of software ready to go.
Yeah.
It will be really interesting. And, people are making hit records without like the traditional studios, without traditional labels, without traditional marketing. Like I said before, the good stuff is going to transcend, and it might not look anything like what the big players of today or literally yesterday, look like.
That's why, like, when you talk about that, I mean, Billie Eilish is a great example of an artist that created a whole different sound, like a whole genre, of the kind of music. I'm sure, like, see, I didn't really follow her genre music, but I'm assuming there's other artists that were playing the same kind of lo-fi pop that she was doing, and it was like that kind of bedroom like lo-fi sound that you would never expect to be number one, winning Grammys, selling out stadiums. Something so quiet would sell out stadiums. A girl that's like barely, probably when she wrote those songs, she was like 14, 15, 16 years old. I mean, I don't know all the details here, but that's incredible to see. So you like find out like the Billie Eilish doing that, the BTS breaking these crazy records of especially live show attendance. I mean, they did 3 Rose Bowls, and they're singing like 90%, 95% in Korean. That's 90,000 times 3 is 270,000 people in LA.
At $30 a ticket.
It's just insane. Like, when you think about the Rose Bowl, just on that alone, think Coldplay did 2. Okay, that makes sense. I forgot who else did 2. I think, Muse definitely did 1. I don't know if maybe
Metallica could probably do 2.
But BTS doing 3. I don't know if anyone's done 3. I don't think Taylor Swift's done 3. I think she might have done 1 or 2. But you think like a K-pop group singing in 90 to 95% in Korean, selling out 3. It's just that time. It's so exciting. Like anything can happen, just like you're saying. Because I think, just like what we said in the very beginning of our conversation, that like people can produce you don't have to have the barrier of entry is changed. It's accessible to young kids, young kids. And the same kids, like imagine if like, especially whoever's watching this is like either has a kid or is a kid that's watching this. Like think about these kids that are playing Fortnite. They're playing hours on hours in Fortnite. Imagine if they spent that time, not to take away from Fortnite, because I just DJ'd in the game, which
I saw that.
And I love the game. I'm like fanatical Call of Duty player, and I love Fortnite. I play Fortnite. But if you were to put that time into producing, at like 13, 14, who knows what can happen? It's just
if you put that time even to like making beats on a 16-step scrolling thing. You who knows? I mean, or who knows what the tools are going to look like? Just because something is made easier by taking a couple steps and squishing it into one doesn't necessarily negate the creativity process. Like by that I mean like I'm going to conjure up a drummer and put it with this bass line. And I don't really know much about either, but I know what I want to hear.
Yeah.
And, musicianship.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Everything is a tool. Everything is just, a vehicle for this.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just becoming easier. It's like, back in the day, you'd have to like hire a session drummer. Like now you just fly in drums, find a drum sample and loop it. Like if you want to have that kind of beat, I mean, for me, production, it's like, it's all about what you're saying. You have to feel it first. It's like your essence putting out there, and then you have the tools in front of you, whatever they may be. And actually for me, in my studio, I don't really use that much outboard gear. I use almost everything in the box. I might like plug in a guitar, Because I did play a little bit of guitar on our song. I just had to, I had to, like, it's not just electronic. I played, and I added the bass on that one. So I played the bass and guitar on that.
Yeah, I don't know what any of this stuff does. It just looks cool, Like,
yeah, my studio does not look like that at all. It's like yours is technical. You have a lot of different all these racks and stuff. I don't have that many racks like that.
It just looks cool, man. They don't do anything. They're just fronts for
flashlights here and there.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if I started talking about this earlier, but I give myself the environment to explore, and part of that environment could be actually physical. Like, here's my studio. Here's where I'm going to work. Or it could be like I give myself musical prompts to explore. Like, I'll pick up a guitar and I won't necessarily know what this is yet, but I feel like I got to do something, and I'll just zone out. And then when I catch myself doing something interesting, then I repeat that, and then I have somewhere to go and I elaborate. It's like, I mean, do you have a process like that? Like, what is your like blank page V1 look like?
My blank page V1, there's a lot of different different outlines of what that V1 looks like. But one is my phone I have so many audio notes. I have so many voice notes from just like melodies. I just record. I mean, I record a lot of stuff, samples and stuff, but I also just record melodies, because like melodies and samples are the two key components for me. I just need a melody that I can loop, and I need a sample that will sound good with whatever melody I have. The drums I can add in later. So those are the two like creative components I need first. So I record a lot on my phone, and I have sample banks, and also work with tons of other people that either like send me melodies or send me sample ideas. But that's like the V1 is really based on those two key components. And how do I get the melody? It is a bit of that kind of zone out mode jam. It is a lot of humming. Like, I start out with humming, and then I'll be like, I like how that sounds. Let me play this out. Oh, it sounds fucking awful. Okay, scrap that. Because I have a lot of those too.
I have so many voice memos that are like, I look at the time, it's like 3 a.m. and it's I'm like, what the hell is this supposed to be? I don't remember this at all. Like, but at the time I feel I gotta record this. Like,
but what about this? This is something I've always dreamed, like literally dreamed of doing. Is I've always wanted to take something from a dream and make it into a song. And every single time that I've had a song in my head when I was dreaming, I'd wake up right away because I'd be so excited for like this dream to actually come to life. Then I would first like hum it before I would get to like a MIDI to play it out, and it would just sound like complete dog shit. Because in your head everything sounds so good. Have you ever dreamed have you ever dreamed a melody that you ended up using?
Yeah. Actually, wow. Sweetness was a song that came from like a dream in a way, like the whoa thing. That was like a dream melody that ended up becoming real.
But dope.
I so know what you're saying. Like, I don't know how many times I've forced myself to get up at 4 a.m. because Sweetness turned out so well.
Yeah.
Now I force myself to get out of bed and document this somehow. Maybe I capture it, maybe I don't, but it's so weird. Like, in your head, you hear the final version, and it is like this transcendent, amazing composition. But then you wake up and it's like, it's just leaving you, like all like the shiny armor is falling off as you're running and become conscious, and it's so weird. It's like, I get so frustrated with like the creative blocks sometimes, because I know that the answer is up here. Like, I know exactly what to do with this because I've heard it in my head. Right. Like, I know exactly what it is, but like, it's just not I can't conjure that in the back up front for some, like, and I get so frustrated by that sometimes, especially with lyric writing. Like, that's the worst.
Oh my God. Oh, lyric writing. It's so hard. I mean, I do get involved, but like, I've definitely put that on the back burner the last few years. I mean, I might get involved. Like, I have songwriting camps in my house, not really anymore, but, and then we'll all like go through and make sure, oh, that's too corny. Let's like change that word. You know, I'm more about that, more about like adjusting now. Like I'd rather bring in like lyricists in, or songwriters in, and then help adjust the lyrics. But God, lyric writing. Oh.
Yeah. Cause then it's real.
Yeah.
Like it's real. And there's an anonymity behind it being in context, but there's such self-judgment when you're looking at it out of context and you've just written it down and you're thinking like, this is lame.
Yeah.
This doesn't, but if he's saying
I own this? Cause you have to own it. You have to own it forever. That's the difference between you and me as well too. Like if you sing it, you own it. If I don't have to sing it and my name's on it, my name's on the song, but I don't necessarily have to own that I'm smoking weed every day. If I'm doing a song about like where the singer's talking about smoking weed every day, I'm like, he's talking about it, but like,
who am I to censor his art?
Whatever it might be. But yeah, you have to own those lyrics, man, when you sing it, because at the end of the day, it's like they see your face singing it.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you, I know you probably got to get going soon, but when you face a creative block, what's that look like? And what sort of helpful things, like I'm stuck on something now that I'm writing.
Oh, dude, I got great ways to deal with that.
Oh yeah. Lay it on me, please.
Okay. One, this I recommend as a, not just for creative block issues, but just for life.
They're so entwined too. The fundamentals of songwriting and life are just so entwined.
Exactly. Fill up your tub with cold water, and the hard part is getting the ice. But if you like, I have an ice machine maker specifically for this metal tub that I have outside my in my backyard. So I fill that up with, it's probably 34, 35 degrees. It's cold. Fill it up with ice.
And you tell yourself, I better finish this song or else I'm getting in that. And then that's...
and sit in that water for 4 minutes. I will tell you, you wake up, first of all, so inspired. Like, I swear to God, it sounds awful. It sounds awful. And like, the more you think about it, the more you won't do it. But it's incredibly like what it does physiologically for your body is it boosts your immune system, does all kinds of things. It sends like I don't know what it does, but it sends like crazy signals to your brain that your brain needs to get activated in that fight or flight response kind of mode. And literally it's to me, it's a no brainer, especially during a creative block. The last thing you want to do is like sit there in misery. Be like, fuck, like you just get out of the room, like change up the environment. But you want a complete reset, like jump in a cold plunge. Like, I tell you, it's like the best, like, wasabi, it's just incredible.
I'll definitely put that on my list.
It's on my last Instagram post. I just posted it up. I did it with Wim Hof. He's like the goat of the ice cold plunge. He like swims underneath lakes, frozen lakes. The guy's nuts. And I did a Zoom with him while I was in the cold plunge. But now I do it all the time. I'm telling you, Jim, you're like, your life will slowly change in a more positive way when you do that. And sauna life. I'm not sure if you have a sauna or if you have access to one, but the sauna life is fantastic.
Heat extremes, cold extremes.
Yes.
There is something like the easiest meditation is just to hold your breath.
Yeah.
Because then that gets you out of your own head, because like your mind is kind of just like, I got to do this and this. Oh, not good enough. no one's gonna like this. Wait, are, are, we need air. We need oxygen. We need oxygen. What's going on? What's going on? And then like, like everything goes to like the fundamentals of existence, and you're out of your own way.
Yeah. Yeah. I do breath work where you breathe in so much oxygen and you push out so much carbon dioxide that like you go into forced hyperventilation. So what happens is your bloodstream gets so oxygenated that when you do the breath hold, I do it for over 2 minutes every time. So, and that's after you breathe out all your, so when you breathe out, and you imagine if you breathe out, like, you probably can hold your breath for like 10 seconds, 20 seconds. But if you can do this breath work and you oxygenate your bloodstream, like your fingers are tingling, your brain's tingling, you're like on another level of high. It's incredible what it does, like how it makes you feel. That's another technique for creative writer's block.
Right. So if quarantine goes on for a while, you're going to start up another career as pearl diver. Just holding your breath for 5 minutes on a stint. Awesome. Hey, Steve, thank you so much for hanging out and chatting with me, man. It's really, yeah, man, I love, like, I mean, you have great songs, and I know I can feel how important your songs are. Like, I totally get that listening to your work, and man, it's really awesome to pick your brain on this stuff. I can't thank you enough for hanging out with me.
Yeah, for sure, dude. That was a lot of fun. I mean, I've been a fan of you and Jimmy World since like, I mean, day one for Jimmy World, like over 20 years.
Pretty much day one.
Yeah, from like the kitchen to, finally doing a song together, which I was really, really happy about. And talking with you here now. So yeah, this is great, man.
Anytime. Awesome. Yeah, thanks a lot, and good luck on the new record too.
Yeah, no, thank you.
In whatever ways you can have luck with it these days. But...
All right, Jim. Thanks, man.
Sweet. Yeah, thanks a lot, Steve.
All right, later, man.
Take care, man. Steve Aoki. Cold bath. Cold plunge. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm still stuck on that thing, so I'm getting kind of desperate. I might actually have to do it. It's exciting to follow Steve around, man. And he's a good guy, and it's great talking to him. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you soon. I'm not walking out of frame now. I'm just going to edit this out. It's going to be like I magically disappeared.